I'm just an ordinary person. But I try to go out of my way to do things with great love. Seeing the suffering of a child is to me unbearable.
You just heard Mae Dolendo. She's a pediatric oncologist working in the Philippines, and today we're going to hear her story. That's next on St. Jude Around the World. I'm Sir Rasul, and I have the privilege of serving as a Senior Vice President for ILSAC, the fundraising and awareness organization for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. As part of the St. Jude Global Mission, we collaborate with nonprofit organizations worldwide to fight against pediatric cancer and other catastrophic diseases. This podcast brings you real stories of the life-saving work of our St. Jude Global Alliance partners. It's often said when a family member has cancer, it's like the entire family has cancer. Imagine if that family member was just a child. At an early age, Mae Dolendo understood that emotional cost of cancer on her family and what it does to everyone.
I was orphaned by cancer at a very young age. I was 17 when my mom passed away from breast cancer. I was the eldest in the family, and we almost lost everything, including our home, trying to have my mom cured of cancer. This is not a job. This is personal. I am inspired by the bravery of children and families. I've seen parents who will never give up. And if I could make a dent on the kind of grief that cancer brings to not only to children but to families, then I think it's worth all the effort and all the energy that I put into this work.
Dr. Mae Dolendo, or Doc Mae as she's called, spends her days at the hospital in Davao City on the island of Mindanao. Ironically, she didn't even plan to go into pediatric oncology. She didn't even know it was possible to cure kids with cancer.
Initially, I thought that, being cured for cancer is just something that you read in the books, because my personal experience was a lot of them died.
Her personal experience changed when her medical training took her to Singapore, where she saw for the first time a cancer patient as a child who actually survived.
And to me, that was like, what? I mean, you could have somebody be diagnosed with cancer, become an adult and have children of their own. And I asked them, how do you do that? How do you do this? How do you treat children with cancer? I want to learn how to do this, and I want to go back and bring this with me.
And bringing it back to the Philippines is exactly what she did. She started treating children in a small room with 3 beds. She was the doctor, the nurse, the social worker, and everything else in between. She did it all. And still, she felt like it wasn't enough.
There was this one patient that who got very ill. I remember it because it was the Holy Week. And, the Holy Week in the Philippines is, even the hospital is on skeletal workforce. For that particular patient, I was really attached to the child and was trying to help them. I was even the one who went down to get the blood for the patient because I couldn't wait for an attendant, or I couldn't wait for somebody. So I had to go to the lab, stand outside of the lab and wait until they could release the blood so I could bring it upstairs and have it transfused to the kid. Short of sleeping next to the patient, I was doing that for like several days. And then eventually, I remember because that started on a Wednesday, and eventually on a Sunday, the patient passed away. It totally broke my heart. And I tend to question, why am I doing this?
And as Doc Mae said, it was hard work, but it was even harder on her emotionally, and it stayed that way for years. Doc Mae and her staff were treating more and more patients, and that meant statistically they were seeing more deaths. Each death hit the staff just as hard as the first death, So she came up with a new way to keep focused on the positive side. She decided to remember the patients she had saved. So she started a special day called Survivor's Day.
The first Survivor's Day was actually my birthday. And I said, instead of me celebrating my birthday, why don't just I have a party for kids who have survived cancer? And okay, let's call everyone. And so 11 kids came. There were 11 kids. But we were happy because we know that we were saving kids. Even if it's 11 kids, it's still 11 kids. But over the years, we sort of were doing Survivor's Day every year. And in 2019, I think we have grown into a celebration of 600 kids.
Doc Mae celebrates every child, but then she quickly realized it wasn't just about the numbers of kids that survive. It's much more than that. It was all the other lives that were impacted.
We already have survivors who have families, who have their own children, and, who have finished university, who have careers, who have love problems instead of like cancer problems. And that totally blew us away. And, we never noticed. We realized that we were not only saving lives, we were also saving futures, and we were making dreams come true. And that puts the whole thing into an entirely different perspective. And then I thought about the first time that I decided to be a pediatric oncologist, when I saw that mom and her kids, we're there. We're beginning to have kids who survive cancer and living their life after cancer and living as if cancer didn't happen. And I think it makes this whole thing worthwhile.
When Dr. Mae Dolendo opened her pediatric cancer practice in 2004, she never imagined life after cancer because cancer was not treatable in the Philippines. A few years later, she realized it wasn't only about the treatment. There was so much more to do.
One night when I was doing my rounds, I saw this father who was looking after his child. And I've been seeing this parent for like several days. And I was asking the dad, where is your wife? Why are you the only one looking after your child? Because for me, it's quite tough to be in the hospital for several days and nobody takes over. He told me, oh, my wife just gave birth, and she has the baby with her. And so, where are you staying? And he told me, oh, my wife is across the street in the bus stop. And to me, I mean, what am I doing for this family? I know I'm a doctor treating cancer, but what about the rest of the family? And so I was able to bring them to the hospital kitchen. And they get to find a space there. And that got me to thinking that these patients, they need a place to stay while they're ongoing treatment.
Doc Mae understood the families needed a place to stay. She also understood the impact of a family from her own experience, and that's what started the transient home called House of Hope. It was built across the courtyard from the hospital, so families can live there while their child is undergoing treatment, similar to what Doc Mae saw at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital when she visited in Memphis, Tennessee.
They don't have to worry about transportation. They don't have to worry about coming back to the hospital 3 times a week. And so House of Hope made an impact on how patients are able to complete treatment and to have actually better chances of cure. It also was able to provide us with better resources because patients stay there for free, so they don't have to pay for a lodging house. And so they have extra money which they can use to buy food or whatever else the child needs. So this actually increases the child's chances of completing the whole treatment and to be cured.
The families living together in the House of Hope gave them a sense of community. The parents all pitch in, they rely on each other, all kinds of people from different backgrounds and cultures living together for one purpose, to give their child a fighting chance. And that's what the House of Hope represents.
I think it's totally terrible for people to run out of hope. And what House of Hope was able to do was to, inspire not only the patients, but also the parents and the people who are working with us to be able to share in what we are doing in whatever way they can.
Doc Mae realized hope was critical for everyone to believe in the future. So eventually they opened a school for the children to continue their education.
We realized that when we started this school, it actually inspired a lot of kids because it gave them hope that, after I complete my treatment, I'd still go back to school. So it gave them hope that, cancer and cancer treatment is just this moment. And that there's life after cancer, that, they can go back to being kids.
House of Hope demonstrates how being able to stay connected with the family means a patient is more likely to complete treatment. Global survival rates increase when patients are able to complete treatment with the strong support of the family unit close by. And this idea of a family unit extends globally, as the House of Hope and the hospital in the Philippines have been partners with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital since 2006.
St. Jude allowed us to have access to people who might be able to help us with our problems. I think we were also able to contribute because we give them lots of challenges, difficult to diagnose patients. So in a way, I think we benefited from the expertise of the people at St. Jude, but at the same time, we were also able to contribute in trying to introduce to St. Jude a whole world out there, which has lots of needs and lots of aspirations as well as lots of challenges.
It becomes difficult to stay connected because of technology sometimes. Something as simple as consistent internet connection is not always available. Even Doc Mae herself didn't have the luxury of internet access in her office at the hospital.
Being able to have reliable internet, you could just imagine you are discussing one patient and then all of a sudden everything turns black. Oh, well, what did they say about the scans or pathology? What was the input about pathology? Then all of a sudden it dies because your internet was very bad.
Then in 2022, a new program offering Starlinks by St. Jude Global and the Polaris Dawn team changed all that.
The U.S. is very far away, right? But the fact that we are able to communicate with them, we are able to access the resources, we are able to talk to specialists that we would have otherwise no capacity to do, I think it's simply amazing.
Communication is key, and that's why the Starlink program was the solution. Starlink is a high-speed internet service enabled by Orbit satellites operated by SpaceX. The Starlinks are part of a donation to St. Jude Global Partners by Polaris Dawn, which is led by the philanthropist Jared Isaacman. He's the commander of Inspiration 4, the history-making first all-civilian mission to orbit in 2021 that raised funds for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
We've been having online meetings with St. Jude for like decades. I was thinking that, why don't I do this with our own shared care facilities? When they have patients on the ground, they could present to me and, I could give advice or I would just tell them, this patient is difficult in your setting, kindly just send it over to us.
She says reliable internet through Starlinks gives her superpowers and gives her the ability to share the knowledge she's getting with other doctors in the Philippines.
It's like how I am, being in the Philippines, able to access the specialist in the U.S. because of St. Jude. And somebody very far, who's living very far away, being able to access me. So I think that's the power of a very good internet. You don't have to be extraordinary to be able to do the things that we are doing, because we are just ordinary people trying to do extraordinary things. Anybody can be part of this whole community that looks after kids with cancer, because it takes a lot. It takes a whole village. It takes a whole world to care for a kid with cancer, and everyone is important. When we started doing what we were doing, even when we were in that small room with 3 beds, what was important was people sitting down, talking together, and sharing ideas. And when you have a good team, when you have people communicating to each other very well, we can accomplish great things.
Despite all the progress Doc Mae has made, access to quality care remains an issue in the Philippines. That's why St. Jude Global is working with healthcare institutions and foundations across the globe to increase survival rates, because every child deserves a chance to live, and St. Jude won't stop until no child dies of cancer, no matter where they live. Thank you for listening to our story. We hope you enjoyed learning more about our partners in the St. Jude Global Alliance. This episode was produced by Jeffrey Reddick. It was edited by Grace Corzico Evans and Evelyn Skoda. Recorded by Jason Latshaw. And I'm Sahara Rasul.